One morning at the train shed, Rob was resting at the siding, when the stout director came to see him and he asked Rob about the goods trains. Rob didn't like it at all. Soon, Rob was collect his goods train when Yandall arrived with his passenger train.
You be careful if I warned you, there's a bend when you pulling goods train with your own risk.
Yeah, I know that. But you can't tell me what to do because I'm being important goods trains to make.
Before Yandall could say another word, Rob puffed away. If it knew better if Rob became reckless. Soon, Rob was speeding down the line. His driver had to checking his speed, but they didn't know that trouble was arose. There's the bend ahead. Before Rob realized this, it was too late. Rob's crews has a cutting wounds and bruised after the crash and they're crossed to drop.
You a very stupid engine. I told you that you're not going that fast at the bend. Maybe if you should listen to Yandall.
Soon Yandall arrived with the gang and breakdown crane. Rob knew his recklessness got the better of him. It was peaceful evening day on the railway. Tom was feeling tired out after his hard work. So the stout director decided that Tom could be a day off and so the others' engines could do Tom's work as well their own. Tom now was sleeping at the sheds. He was feeling comfortable now, and he knew his work could be stress out and sometimes overtired in the progress. Harrison was Atlantic GNR class with his old shape. He was felt more sufferable than the most. Sometimes he pulling goods and passengers around the railway, but he doesn't get better. At Eddie's station, things did not going so well for Harrison. He was utterly sick because he has a small fireboxes was difficult to build up steam. The stout director decided to sort Harrison out with some special to make him bright again. He was now happy in rest of his life. A few months passed, things begin getting cold and snow was coming. Harrison was assigned to take his long fish trains to other side of the railway. Harrison was racing down the line and he felt going faster, but he didn't know that trouble was just about to catastrophic. The signalman who forgot to switch the points despite of snow and ice was being frozen that leading into another goods train was waiting at mainline, and he didn't warn about Harrison that who was on the same track. By the time when signalman could check, it was too late. Meanwhile, the stout director was at his office, eating some breakfast, when the porter rushing to his office.
Excuse me, sir. There's been a devastating accident at near of York's Well station.
Oh dear. I hope Harrison was alright. Just send help him immediately.
Harrison was laying on his side and he was cutting wounds and bruised after the crash. The house was being destroyed and killing 3 people inside. As for a gas station, some of the fish train partially derailed and smashed into it, causing the gas station to explode. A few months later, Harrison was returned back home and he was back in service with his new shape and large fireboxes that he was unique and strong. And he was nothing to worry about problems of his fireboxes. One day, Charles the tank engine, who was not happy at all. The stout director brought him and assigned him to shunting trucks in the yard. Charles started feeling none of it. I want to be mainline and pulling express and flying fast down the line, not shunting trucks in the yard, he said. His driver, however, has no rudeness but annoyed the engine. You're a tank engine. You are more capable for shunting coaches and trucks in yard, and you could pulling light goods train or a light coaches that you could like, scolded his driver. As the days went over, Charles's behavior was no better. He was so immature and being tantrum, but sometime he has his own psychopathic, reckless and mental illness problems. The other engines ignore him completely, but until one day his attitude might get better of him. The stout director asked Charles that he could pulling a special express train, and he was delighted, but not with all his reckless attitude and his psycho's behavior. As the guard blew his whistle, he started off. As Charles went down the main line, he started to go faster and his driver started to check his speed, and then there's a first station ahead that Charles supposed to stop. His driver applied the brakes, but to his horror, he found it couldn't. Charles started to go faster and faster and his driver shouted, "Charles, what are you doing? You're supposed to stop at the station." But Charles didn't listen and he started laughing psychopathically. Charles and his express has jumped off the tracks and plunged down into the road below, killing all the passengers and his crews inside his cab. The first and second coaches were destroyed by the fire and burning some degrees of the passengers. As for Charles himself, his boiler, his buffers beams and his front coupling and his wheels are completely damaged, and he felt emotionless, bruised and very sore. Soon the stout director came to see the disaster and he was very annoying. "Well, Charles, what did you have to say for yourself?" But Charles feeling very weak and said nothing. "For your very reckless and rudeness behavior, I can't repair you because I have no money," said the stout director darkly. Charles was sent away to scrapyard and he learns his lesson ever since. Charles was still at scrapyard, he felt lost and helpless and his life was soon regretted. Just then he heard something in the distance. It was Eddie who was pulling his scrap trucks and one scrap coach which is towed to the scrap yard. Eddie rolled to the stop and he looked at Charles.
"Oh, it's you. What are you doing here at the scrapyard?"
I was hosted by a scrapyard because I was very naughty and dangerous engine on the railway after my own tragic accident with my own passengers and my crews, and the stout director wouldn't repair me and I was so remorsed because of my own unacceptable behaviors. But in few months, I want to change my life and I wish I'll be really useful, and I know now that I'm not fit to work here or someplace else.
Maybe that serves you right.
Yes, I was to apologize for my own psychological behaviors in the past. Only I did was very stupid and pretty immature. Hopefully I could forgive me from my own past.
Eddie smiled. Soon Charles was hauled out from the scrapyard and he was ready to be really useful again and his second chance. It seems that he changed his life ever and ever, and he was pulling any trains and he was a hard worker at the stout director's railway. Gregory, the big grand engine who was working at the stout director's railway. He loved pulling his express and flying down the line. Sometimes he stopped every between stations that people need to get for a right stop. One evening at the sheds, the other engines were settled down from day's work. But Gregory wanted to talk. "If I was a same age as Flying Scotsman, which how same we build for high-speed express trains, I always pulling express and nothing to say that Rob was pulling his goods train and I haven't," he said. Rob was scoffed. He remembered the time he had an accident with his goods train before due to his reckless. The other engines couldn't help that Gregory was being a little bit cocky and boastful. At last, his conversation was cutting to short and soon everything is silenced that all engines went to sleep, but unfortunately for Gregory, his cocky will soon for a better if he had. It was 4 a.m. in next morning, as his crews came early. "Wake up, Gregory," he shouted. "Sorry I hate to wake you up in the middle of the night, but we received by the stout director that you need to take goods train to other side of the railway." Gregory yawns and he said, "Why not Jackie or Tom or Paul could do it?" Jackie and Tom was delayed at the mainland and Paul was busying at far away to helping at other railway, and so stop your complaining and get moving, his driver said sternly. And Gregory puffing out from the sheds. Soon, Gregory raced down the line with his heavy goods train and he was still in foul mood. But he didn't know the careless signalman who forgot to switch the points to the branch line. And also the sign ahead on the branch line say, "Slow down, uneven tracks," but Gregory didn't pay attention to the sign and it was too late for realizing his mistake. One moment, he was on the rails and then... No one was seriously killed and it was a good thing the farmhouse was empty and destroyed, but there's no person inside was crushed by Gregory. But Gregory did feeling silly. Soon, the stout director arrived. "Gregory, did you know about rules and regulations?" Gregory didn't what to say, he just looked down to his buffers. "The reason that you weren't supposed to be on the branch line because of your size you are. Maybe I will talk to signalman about that, will not sending any big engines in the wrong part of the line, but next time, you should pay attention to the signs that where you're going and never let signalman sending you in a wrong line again," said the stout director. With that, he sharply on his heels and walked away, leaving Gregory much to think about. Jamie the joyful engine who was enjoy himself on the stout director. He sometimes pulling any freight or coaches. One day, when Jamie tries to stop at the station, but his brakes was pretty stiffed and a little unable to stop. Luckily, Jamie almost overshot the platform and he was worried. "Oh dear, what if it might happen when my brakes weren't working probably and causing you accident," said Jamie. His driver was concerned too and he said, "There's something going on your brakes, but it was completely fine to me." Jamie wasn't sure about that. But later, Jamie had a terrible accident with his trucks and his contents were scattered everywhere at the field. Poor Jamie wasn't be joyfulness now. His boiler was a little dented, his buffers was broken and his paintwork was completely scratched up. The stout director spoke kindly to Jamie. "Don't worry, Jamie, the accident wasn't your fault and your crews told me about your brakes. However, you need to go to the works to be mended." Jamie was feeling good as new. He has new brakes and his new overhaul and the all engines were glad to see Jamie back after he was being unserviceable.
Huh?